All right, so we are back with our second episode of this micro ON30 layout I'll be building. I just spent about an hour and a half cutting and completing this 2-foot by 3-foot box, and went ahead and drilled some holes in for our feeder wires and added a couple little clips on both ends. 1/2-inch piece of plywood and 1x3s are what created this box. I had a couple of spare 1x3s. They're a little smaller, but they work nice for the interior structure of this box. So, and here's the top of our box. So yeah, this will give you an idea how I constructed it. I sunk all these drywall screws in, so we've got nice flat surfaces to work on top. All right, next we'll be adding it 3 inches of foam. We're going to start sculpting the foam on this. We're going to have 3 inches for our first level, and after that we'll be laying our first lower level of track. So what I'm going to do here is I've got my template right here on top, all the printed out template. As I said, we're going to have 3 inches. Right now I've got 1 inch foam on the box. My other 2-inch piece is right here. But for now, I'm just going to pin this down, tape it down temporarily. And I think what I'm going to attempt here is to, well, just start with the blue line track here first. Okay, that's the lower level that we're going to do on this. And I think I'm going to take my X-Acto blade and carefully score into the foam the main track line here. And once I get that done, I may actually come out here also and mark where the outside portion of the wood ties comes. That way, if I have all that scribed into this piece of foam, that'll give me a good place to start with carving away some of the landscape and also laying of the track. So I'm going to get that started, and let's see how that goes. So as far as the lower level track, let's take a look. I pulled all the pins out and scribed our lines, and let's take a look here. And I've actually went back and taped some areas too. I see I'm going to have to tape a little more, but let's just take a peek while we've got this. There you go. There's going to be where our riverbed goes. There's the track. That's great. Next thing I did here, flip this upside down and put in my bus wire. This is 16 gauge bus wire. I'll be running the red to the outside and the black to the inside. They just overlap a little bit down here. I wanted to keep them nice and tight and rope them off for cleanliness and stuff. So yeah, bus line is in. So after about 45 minutes of a rigorous cleanup, with a lot of cutting, a lot of sanding, a lot of cutting of foam, this whole floor was trashed. But we're all cleaned up now, dust free. I had the fan blowing everything out. I got the ceiling fan going. Always make sure, because this stuff makes a mess. But this is where I'm at so far with the first 3-inch level off of the base. Now this foam is not connected to the base yet at all. The reason I have this instead of a bridge is because we have a switch going over the top here. So you can see it's going to be right about where it is. And I'm going to have a manual turnout little flip switch here. So I got to get my heat gun to the foam to get all the little schmutz off of there for painting. And then I thought about cork. I'm still debating whether I want to do cork or just lay the track right on the foam, because I think I'll get a better bond that way. The cork I bought is a cork sheet, and I don't trust the tacky stuff underneath because I'm not going to be nailing the track in. I'm going to be relying on the liquid nails for this. So anyway, with the natural sun coming in, I leave you with that. And this. Just pushed this back a little bit and filled in our screw holes here where there'll be water. There were only 4 that I had to fill in here. So I did that. But next we will be adhering our track to this first layer foam. And right here, I drilled a hole that goes through for our green wire and the frog for this guy. All right, track is not down yet, but all the pieces are soldered together and ready for gluing. But here's our layout for the first level. This I can't get to stay, but it's going to be coming out this way. But you know, that's going to need some pins and some weight down in it. So I'll be attaching this track with liquid nails. There you go, liquid nails for projects and foam board. This bonds, as you can see right here, it bonds to foam board, cork board, molding, drywall, plywood, paneling, particle board, furring strips, and more. And currently, the only thing attaching this foam to the plywood is that liquid nails I just showed you. It is pretty strong. I had a bunch of paint cans with some boards sitting on this all last night. I put down the liquid nails for projects, foam usage, and all other materials, and have the track in place. And just had one little tricky area where I'm trying to keep it down. I had to add a little bit more liquid nails to the spot. But other than that, it laid in really quick and it grabbed really quick. Same here. I was very impressed with, once again, the bending of this track. Yeah, switch is running good. I'm rolling a car over it, and it's doing really nice. Still got our switch working here. I'll come back in when this is completely dry in 24 hours and slide some more underneath here in the gaps. What else? Yeah, so we'll starting to drop some feeder wires down next. We only are using, let's see, for the turnout, I already pre-soldered some spots down in here where I'll be connecting the feeder wires for the turnout. Not sure yet if I'll put one in here for the siding. I think we'll be okay, but I have a short piece of track here. That's the shortest piece. We'll put a feeder there, and it is a little overkill, but I like to have one on every separate piece of track. So this one goes from here all the way to here. So we'll put some feeder wires right around in here. And then we'll do some feeder wires in here. It starts there and it ends right here. So that's 1/36" piece right there. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8 on the turnout. Okay, I used suitcase connectors. All our wiring is hooked up except for our switch. I'm still waiting on my frog juicer, but I have a spare control panel with my NCE power cab. I got that hooked up here. This is where the panel will go in the end, but for now I just drilled a little hole because we're gonna have to jig out a shape anyway to put the panel in there permanently. But for now, while testing, I've got that plug ready to go into it. Here's our bus, but then I had some spare wire, so I went with blue to attach the black and a copper color to go to the red on all of my wires. Okay, so we'll come back and we're gonna get everything hooked up and test out an engine on this locomotive to see what we got. All right, now let me just show you. I use a hot wire cutter, right? This is a foam, it cuts foam beautifully. Okay, I'll show you. With my particular one, made by Woodland Scenics, you can find them a little cheaper. But mine, you just push the button forward, and when you do that, it heats up the wire. So this is how I've been forming my mountains so far, okay? Let me show you guys. Okay, so watch how it just cuts right in. And you can shape your mountains, right? So next, let me just show you the result of some of the stuff that I've been working on here to create these mountains. So what you're looking at here is the wire cutter, okay? And it gets kind of bumpy, it gets kind of ripply. So what I do next, after cutting out my shapes, which is what I've done with all of this, it's very time consuming for me at least. Then I take one of these like spongy type fine sanding pads, right? And this was an extra one I had around from painting projects and patching walls. And then I hit the area like this to smooth it out. Like I like the angles that I get, but I try to smooth them out best I can to get something more like this. Now let's look below. I'll show you some of the rock that's done. These 2 layers are done. So not only does the sanding block give you smoothness, but it also gives you some really nice texture. So what I'm going after here is more of a Southwest, American Southwest look, you know, desert, but with big, tall, peaking mountains that go straight up. So that's where I'm at right now. And I know that I've jumped ahead and started doing the scenery, but now I wanted to show you how I approach this. Each layer, I do it in layers. All right, so when I come back and I'm done sanding these 2 pieces, which go over there, all right, I'll start cutting away some details with a knife and a pencil and show you how I achieve that. Okay, so now I've sanded these 2 pieces down, and that's a big difference if you roll back the video. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is add some detail to this. But what I'm going to do first is mark the inside in here where the tunnel is, back on these sides of this wall. And on those walls, I use this right here. It's a steel brush. You can find these things Home Depot, Ace Hardware, wherever. It's a little steel brush. And I rough up the surfaces. I don't know if you could see. Yeah, if you look in there, you can see how I roughed up the surface inside, like blasted rock. It's just an impression. Nobody's ever going to really look completely inside of there. But that's what we're going to do next, okay? And then I'm going to add some details. Okay, so next steps is the detail. I just poked out with a pencil, draw some striation lines, I guess you call them. You know, did a little bit of that, and then you go over it very lightly with a heat gun, and it takes all those little doodads and all that fuzzy stuff off, and kind of melds it all into one. Okay? Onward to building more levels. I've scored in with an X-Acto blade the top level track all through here, kind of roughing out where my cuts will be. It took a good hour to come up with this so that it all lines up with everything underneath. I'm going to lay the track out and solder it together and pin it to this so I know it will work. Okay, second layer of track is not adhered down, but it's in place and it's to shape. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do after this is we got to work up a 1-inch piece below this 2-inch piece. So at the same time, I will be cutting the shape of this piece out along with another 1-inch piece below. And I'm going to cut out the areas on here where I know the rock will end. So we'll have 2 pieces, one here and one here. But this track will be my template for lining these 2 pieces up on top of the rest of our scenery. All right, so that is to come next. So another key that's very essential in building this, okay, is staying level. Because although all these foam pieces are the same thickness and of the same like, you may have some areas like I did. I'll point out here, I have a big recess here because of how I had to add some pieces onto the outside here. So these pieces were never part of the actual surface here. Like I had to add pieces on and work them up. And I knew early on that they wouldn't be perfectly matched level-wise. So in here, I placed a couple little pieces of cardboard, cut cardboard, and placed them in the corners, like one here, and kept checking how level everything was. These areas here, these center areas are very, very stable. Once again, another area here was right here. This one wasn't as bad. But I noticed by adding a couple little pieces of cut cardboard on the ends, it kept everything in place. And what I plan on doing is coming back into these deep recesses and adding some a form of Sculptamold or I'm sorry, joint compound. I've been told that's pretty good too. So, but for now we are good. We're level this way, pretty good. And when I check them this way, they're not bad. One thing to take into consideration in testing these here is that they all lean a little bit this way, but I found it's because of where it sits on this flimsy card table. They're all the same, so that's a good sign. But anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna put some cans on this and let that sit overnight. And then we're gonna get to the second, we're gonna adhere the second level of track up on top of what we have right here now. All right, so a little bit more work done here. I have adhered the top piece of track with liquid nails, foam projects. I'm starting to work on these. I cut out the little end pieces, trying to match up here as best we can, both sides. What else? Same with this. We've got 2 pieces yet to finish sanding, and what I'm going to do is since we're getting close to being finished here with all the foam rock scenery, I'm going to show you just how I create some of this texture. But I've trimmed it out, as you can see here with the hot wire tool, just to get it close in shape. You can see the seam there, but we're coming down here kind of all matched up. Same here. This is another extra piece right here, okay? So I just kind of roughly cut those in while the track was drying, but I still got to wait till tomorrow. And what I'm going to do tomorrow is I've marked off where our feeders are going to go down. You can see, don't be confused, I have a lot of brown marker dots on here from just trying to position the track in the right spot. But right in here, you can see we're gonna feed one of our feeders here and one here. And these lines that are drawn in pencil mean this is where we're gonna feed them down, because I can't feed them straight down from the track and go down below because we have an opening down here. So from this spot right here, you can see we can go straight down and into the base. This side's a little bit easier though. So we're gonna just have 2 sets of feeders to cover this whole top piece. And I think that should be plenty. Here are the other 2 spots right here. Okay, and those, if you look from the track, can go straight down. We're gonna have plenty of area to go straight down and drill through the foam, through the wood, into the bottom, and we'll join our feeder wires down there. Let's see, this is the drill bit I purchased. I believe this is a DeWalt. It's a 1/8 inch round by 12 inches long. So plenty of room, almost not, but just enough. If you could see that. So if we go through there, yeah, we're just gonna make it through to the base. But that's gonna come up next. I'm gonna get to that tomorrow because I do not want to disrupt this track, although it's already adhered pretty darn good after 4 hours. This stuff sets after 30 minutes, but I don't want to disrupt it. So, but yeah, we're getting there, okay? We'll get the wiring hooked up here. We'll test run our trains. And when that's all done, this whole level is completed. We still have more to build up. We've got a tunnel section here. We're gonna make this top part not look so flat, except for the areas where I'm planning on putting some structures in. So anyways, that's it for now. Later. So here's the wiring for one side of the upper level track. You can see where we're at. Here, I had to attach it on both sides here, and what I did was I buried the wire. Next thing I'm gonna do is fill over this with some putty and spackle or whatever I'm gonna use for that. Because we couldn't come straight down, because below here, as we said earlier, we have gaps. So our drill would have went right through here and there and would have been very visible. And as you can see, there were a few attempts with the foam. I had 2 holes originally. This was the second one, but it ended up, don't ask me how, but we're talking about a 12-inch drill bit that worked its way over to this hole. So we moved it back farther and kind of angled it down that way. And that's why we have a few other holes here with experimentation. But that was the only one we had to move off to the side for the entire layout. All the rest of them are similar to this. Just a couple of holes on either side, and then we solder a little wire there. Same with the bottom level. In the bottom area, we did a very similar thing, and then I filled it in with putty. So my wires were buried, as I said, and I just used, for the small stuff, I used this Woodland Scenics. I have some left over from a project from 4 or 5 years ago. This foam putty is about 10 bucks. But you can use anything in here, any type of spackle, joint compound, you know, just to fill these little holes in. That way, when you get to the surfacing or whatever I put over this area, it won't fall down through the holes. It'll be much easier and just adhere. So we are done to this level, to this second level. I'm going to be building more up on this top level, as stated before. But we're going to let all of our new pieces on the ends now dry overnight. And the next thing we'll also do, not right away, but I've purchased some joint compound to fill in bigger gaps in our stone. Maybe putting a little bit right here too. I'm not sure yet, but we'll see how that goes. But otherwise, we'll be back. Hey, everybody out there in YouTube viewing land, Wally Swatley, and I wanted to take this time to actually show my face. I don't usually show my face a whole lot in my videos, but I need a little space here. I'm in a spare bedroom building, this guy here. Lighting isn't great, but what I want to show you now is what I was explaining earlier is after cutting these pieces of foam with the hot wire, it's right over here. Mine looks like this, right? So you push this button up and you can just cut pieces of foam off, right? And you can shape it to look something like this. This piece I haven't taken to a sanded state yet or added any other details, like some rock texture and things like that. So I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna adjust the camera and kind of zoom in on how I approach doing some of this. All right, so what I do is I start off, I have an old used, it's a spongy kind of sander. They sell them at any hardware store you can think of, any big chain, Home Depot, Lowe's, and they're very soft and they're bendable. They're kind of bendable sanding blocks. And so I use one of these, and what I try to do is, if you can see, my hot wire cutter leaves a lot of little bumps and lines and striations, I think is the word, maybe. But in some cases, I would think this would look pretty cool as rock. But I've taken this layout to a different approach. So I've been kind of cleaning it up. But what I do like, okay, are the cut areas. Like, I like the shapes that are coming in here. So what I try to do then is take the sanding block, right, and just smooth out those areas. I don't want to go over the whole thing, because then it'll just give me a rounded, a completely either flat or round piece. So I usually start on one end, right? and in this case too, I have another piece I'm going to be butting up against this. So I'm probably going to be very light here because I don't want to change the shape of how these two rocks connect, and I'll show you that in a little bit after we're done sanding it. Anyway, so we'll start on this end, and I'm just going to hit this, like I said, very light, because I know that, here, let me get closer into the camera here a little bit, because I know this is going to butt up against something, and that piece has already been sanded down. Okay, so you can see just right here, this is the little spot I hit, okay? And it had these lines in it that you're seeing everywhere else, but now it doesn't. And the other nice thing about using the sanding block is it starts to give you a natural texture, okay? Now, I don't get too critical on all of this because rock is rock, right? But because I am an artist by trade, I also I like things to be kind of angular. I get that way, so that I know when the light hits these rocks, right, we're gonna have some contrast and we're gonna have some shape. We're not just gonna be flat. So the area I've done so far is right here. you can see I'm already just taking out the lines. So that's the premise of this first part with the sanding block. So one more time, I'm going to focus on this large area right here, okay? And you may want to keep some of that, right? So if you go in one direction, okay, you start seeing some strands go down. So, and it's kind of nice because now you're losing some of that shininess too. So even though this is going to be rock and it's going to be painted over and it's going to be hard, you know, you want texture on it because in reality, rock has texture. So that's where we're going with this so far, right? And so you can soften any angle you want. I think this is like a medium grit. It might even be a very light grit. I can't remember, it was purchased so long ago, but it looks like it's very fine. And because it's fine, it'll cover more quicker, see? So I will keep going on this piece. Okay, you can kind of see how this is going. We have a really deep crevice in here, okay? Let's take a look at that in my crappy lighting. So we've got a lot of lines. That looks kind of fake to me. So there, I'll go in with this tip. I'll just take it, go in like this, all right? And just start smoothing it out. And sometimes if I don't like what a sharp corner is doing, you just sand it and smooth it. That's all you gotta do. So I'm really gonna round this out in here. Not completely, but I'm gonna try to do as much as I can to get rid of those lines. And in some cases, I keep a few of them. Let's take this off. All right, so that's a little better, right? Okay. So there's where we're at with this. Okay. All right. So next, pencil's kind of a neat thing. With the pencil, I often go like this. So you just kind of dig in a little. It's almost like you're drawing, but you're digging into it. And I start creating some cracks going downward. You can go any way you want, right? So you can pick some of this out of here. See that? You give yourself some deep areas, some deep cracks. Sky's the limit, so be creative, have fun with it. Now the knife's kind of a neat thing too. So with the knife, I sometimes go in a side fashion and I kind of dig in like this. You know, so now we have rock pattern going across like that. You get that little fuzzy thing out there, but you can pick away more at it. So, you know, you can get really creative with the rock formations. So, so see, that's kind of where we're going right now. I ain't saying it's the coolest yet, but because there's so much happening here still that I don't like, I'm gonna take my knife and go up like this. So cut in there really deep. You can do whatever you want. And you can, this is nice because you can bend it out and then you've got yourself another little crack. So, okay. All right, so this is what I came up with, some more pencil stuff here. Okay. So we've got that, right? There's some really cool, intricate things happening there as far as rock goes. All right, and then now that I have most of the vertical stuff, I'm going to add a little bit more horizontal because that seems to do the trick on this. Here's a little end, kind of what the end is looking like too up in here. Kind of chipping away a little bit. And when we're all done, I'll show you how it'll look with everything that's around it too and below it. So here I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to chip some of that away. Okay. Being very careful by the edge here because right now it lines up so nicely with what I had already. Okay. Here's a wire brush. Got this at Home Depot. And if you want to add more texture, I haven't been doing a whole lot of this except for in spots. But if you want to add more texture, you can follow the direction. Like, I'm going to go this way. And add a horizontal texture to this, which is right here. Can you, or is it right here? Can you kind of see this here now, right? As opposed to some of this stuff that's kind of smooth. This one right here. So you can do things like that. You can go this way, you can go downward, horizontal. And you know, look, you can really dig in and get some texture. So, all right, you can do whatever you want. But this is the way I approach it. Now, I don't go across all parts with this, but you can, okay? So, this piece looks pretty good. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go see how it's working with all the other stuff around it, but I'll take you back to that later when we're done with this piece. We have another step we're gonna do if we're done here. All right, this was looking pretty cool up over there on the layout. So next and final step is a tip I picked up from Dave Meeks, Thunder Mesa Studio, and I gotta say, years ago I made foam. This is going to be Southwest, right? But I had an N scale, you know, kind of Rocky Mountain kind of mountains, and they were much more edgier than these. And I wish I would have thought of this back then, because here's what the heat gun. This is a heat gun, okay? I got this on Amazon. I know it was like under 20 bucks. But what the heat gun does, right? So you have all this dust, right? Sanding and chipping away. You got loose pieces sticking out here a little bit, right? This cleans up all of that, okay? Let's turn on the heat gun and it heats it all into place. Gets rid of all that dust. And it actually begins to make it look a lot more like stone. Just enough, you know, and get lightly enough over it to glaze that surface. And it does wonders. Here's the finished piece. See how it smoothed everything out? I mean, it got rid of all the little pieces that were hanging on and sticking on. So that's how I do this, you guys. That's how I've been forming these particular rocks. But no matter what rock you do, you know, this is how you do it. And I'll take you over to the layout next and just show you, you know, there's layers of this. I'm on my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 8th layer now, building upward. All right, I'll take you to the layout next. Okay, so here's a piece I just sanded and used the heat gun on. To fit in with the rest of this here. You see how it's all on layers. 1, 2, 3, there's 3 layers here already, and below that there's 4 and 5 and 6 when we get down over here to the base. But this is gonna fit right in here like that, okay? And it just works out really nice. It's, you know, and I'm not going for super realistic on this at all. This is more, it's kind of stylized. It's a little bit of stylized, but it should look very believable in the end for what it is after it's painted, because right now we got pink rock here. But there's a style to it. I'm almost going after a little bit of Disney Pixar's Cars, you know, when they're in the Southwest and they're, you know, racing and all that, and you see all these really cool angular mountains and stuff, and that's kind of what I'm going after with this project here. So the next thing we do here then, and I'll show you that when we come back. Let me go grab some liquid nails and I'll show you how I adhere it. Okay, so we're back. I had to reload the liquid nails projects for the foam board. All right, so All right, so you don't have to put too much of this stuff on, okay? Matter of fact, for this area here, I haven't had to do anything on the side yet, but I might apply a little bit there. But what I normally do is I put it on the surface it's gonna go on, just in case, because some of these have a little lip that overhangs the one below it. So we're gonna start by just adding a little bit like this. And I say you don't need a lot, okay? That's about it. And because just a thin layer of this stuff does the trick. Just try to cover as much as of the area as you can. But I'll tell you what, you don't need a lot of it. It's fantastic. No, so when you put this stuff down, that's a good coat right there for this, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this down over here for a minute. And this is the side, this here will butt up against this, okay? So I'm gonna put just a little bit on this. Get this tool back. Just get full coverage, like so. I try to get it close to the edge, but not always right on it. All right, what I do is I set it on there. You can line it up. It doesn't adhere immediately, so you could still move it a little bit, right? So I'm gonna line up my edges here so it's nice and flush, right? You can push down. Sometimes what I do is I wiggle a little bit, spread that stuff out a little bit, okay? Then it really starts to bond. So, all right, you don't have to do that, but I do that. That's the way I do my foam. That's how I've done the track also. The track also has liquid nails for foam, very thin layer in spots. So thin, it's translucent, but man, does it hold. All right, I've got all the pieces in place. They've all been detailed. This was one of them here. Let's get back. These two here, this one here and that one, were just put on tonight. And then the one you guys saw me put on this one here. So that's where we're at, okay? I've got power running to this track, and we'll show you that running. Both trains are moving along now. All the wiring's been done. Well, that's just about going to do it for Chapter 2, this second episode of my ON30 Gold Run Creek Micro Layout. Hopefully I've given you all enough information on the way I approach it, especially the foam mountains. I think in our next episode we'll definitely cover what's going to go up and above our second level of track there. We'll have another tunnel to put in. And we're going to make that ground up there look a little less even like it does right now on the top of the mountain. But in the next episode, we'll definitely cover that, and then painting the rocks and getting some ballast in, painting the track, and then possibly getting to the bridges. Once again, thanks again for joining me here at Wally's Model Railroading.